Welcome to the Apex Fundamentals series.
Hi, friends.
This is a series where I'll break down the core concepts behind high-level Apex Legends gameplay. I've hit number 1 8 times, I've IGL'd at multiple LGS LAN events, and I'm here to show you how the game actually works. I'll go through every important mechanic and concept within the game and explain one of them at a time to help you guys win more games. In the last episode, we talked about positioning and its importance in Apex, but today we're going to talk about spacing. You might be asking yourself, what is spacing and why does it matter so much in Apex? Spacing controls everything. It's the invisible line that decides whether your team is supporting each other or down one by one. It's how far you are from cover, how far your teammates are from you, and how far you're keeping yourself from the enemy. Every bit of distance you create or close helps to change the outcome of a fight. Good spacing means you can swing for trades, take angles, and reset safely. Bad spacing means you're stacked on top of each other, blocking sightlines, or pushing too close and giving your enemies free damage. Spacing doesn't just win fights, it often decides who wins the entire game. In ranked and competitive play, the team that controls the most space usually wins the fight and the game, often without needing to do anything else. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly what spacing is, how to read it in real time, and how to create and control space to win more fights, whether you're solo queuing, playing with a team, or in a competitive environment. Spacing wins fights. Simple as that. Because in Apex, space equals control. The more space your team controls, the more options you have. When you have space, you can take angles, isolate targets, and force the enemy to split their intention. When you don't control space, you're boxed in, limited, and fighting on another team's terms. Teams that don't control space are reacting, cornered, and forced into bad moves. Think about every team fight you've ever lost. Usually it's not because your mechanics were worse, it's because your spacing was. You stacked too close, gave up crossfire angles, or pushed without creating room to trade. And once your team loses that space, it's almost impossible to get it back. The teams that win consistently, in ranked or comp, are the ones that understand how to hold ground and keep their spacing tight enough to support but wide enough to punish. They don't just fight, they control the fight. The team with the most space has the power to decide when and how the fight happens. So what does good spacing actually look like? Good spacing isn't about just putting distance between you and your teammates or the enemy. It's about finding the right balance. You don't want to be so tight that you block each other's sightlines or get caught in splash damage, but you also don't want to be so spread out that your team can't trade effectively or help each other in a fight. When spacing is done right, every move has intent. If a teammate takes an aggressive angle, you're setting up a crossfire to back them up. If someone's low, you're close enough to trade or reset safely. And if an enemy tries to isolate one of you, your spacing will help make it so it's much harder for them to succeed. A team with good spacing forces their opponents into tough decisions, to turn their backs, split their focus, or overextend just to deal with the pressure. That's spacing in motion. It's not static, it's a constant battle to control space before your opponents do. Now that we've broken down what good spacing actually looks like, let's see it in action. I'm going to show you a clip where I 1v3 a Pred team. And yeah, obviously the mechanics matter, but it's the spacing that makes this fight so easily winnable. I used this clip in the last episode about positioning, but I never actually dived into the concept of spacing throughout this clip. So that's what I'm going to do here. When you're in a fight, you want to keep distance from you and your enemy that minimizes risk. It means that you keep enough distance so that if you get cracked, you're not easily punishable. In this situation, you see the enemy in front of me here. If I was to get cracked or put weak, can he push me before I have time to slide back and pop a bat? No. That is a good example of what spacing is. I'm under very little pressure here. So this allows me to obviously take control of the head glitch and pressure and take my one, which I do here. I get the free kill because obviously good mechanics and head glitch, but there's little to no risk here. I'm not afraid of anything going wrong.
Oh my days.
Once I get the knock, my next priority is instantly taking the roof. And another concept of spacing is to keep layers between you and the enemy. So in this situation, if this lifeline wants to push me, what does she have to do? This lifeline has to climb up on the roof and go for an animation to push me. It gives me A, an easy one clip because she's stuck in a static animation, or B, enough time to once again back up. It's the same concept. I have time and I have spacing. So I end up just getting the free knock here. I slide down and right here, I'm doing the exact same thing once again. I'm keeping distance from my enemy and having layers. This means that no matter what the enemy does, I'm not under actually much risk. I can slide left, I can slide right, like I explained in the last video. And because of me doing that, I end up just wiping this team for pretty much free under no risk. This was the most risky fight I had to take, and it was the 1v1 at the end. So that's just how I ended up 1v3ing a Pred team with very little effort. That's the power of good spacing. It lowers your risk, raises your impact, and turns a tough fight into something you can control from start to finish. Now, let's take that idea a step further, because spacing doesn't happen by accident. Next, we're breaking down how you can create space and how to force teams to play on your terms instead of theirs. When you create space effectively, you're dictating where the fight happens and limiting the enemy's options. You're not just moving to make room for yourself, you're actively shaping the battlefield. This can mean using positioning to cut off key sightlines, applying pressure of utility like grenades or abilities to help push enemies back, or coordinating with your team to surround or isolate targets. It's about forcing the enemy out of their comfort zone while maintaining your own safety and advantage. Every movement, every utility used, and every angle taken should have the clear intent to gain and take control of ground, not just to create space, but to hold it and make it your territory. This gives your team the initiative and forces your opponents to react, putting them in a defensive and uncomfortable position before the fight even truly begins. Now that we've talked about how creating space works, let's look at it in action. I'm going to show you a moment where I take just a little bit of ground. A small controlled push. This will completely shift the fight in our favour and gives us control before the fight even begins. The first takeaway I want you guys to have is we are currently not in zone. The second takeaway is the power position of this zone is control of this bridge. I'm aiming to siege this off the enemy. I'm aiming to take control of the space they have. A very, very, very important guideline that I want you guys to follow is look at the enemies before you push. Try and see how they're playing the game. Are they aggressive? Are they passive? Are they loosely burning utility? And figure it out before you take the fight. But because I've watched this team and I understand how they're playing, I'm able to play as aggressive as I want. I see they're not taking space, they're playing very slowly, and I just send it forward. I take control of this little hut on the left, and I instantly tell my teammates to play forward because of this. So, right here, I have taken control of the power position at the edge of this bridge. This gives me sightlines over everything going on. This now allows my teammates to walk up for free, and now they have burnt their only piece of utility. This is a sign of both pressure and fear. Even though they were strong side before, they feel weak, they feel pressured. They had to burn their lifeline ult and bang ult. So we just wait out their bang ult. But now the situation is equal. We are inside their space. They don't have the advantage they had before. And now I'm able to queue through, take this 1v1 in this lifeline, pop a bat as my teammates chow on the other one. I take the queue through and I chow the 1v1 on the Maggie. I end up getting another free knock, and see, by doing this and by opening this space up, we end up getting full control over the bridge. The solo ran away and the other team's on low ground, and by taking advantage of all these things I've mentioned, we went on to win the game for free like I showed you. So that's how creating space works. When you do it with intention, you're not just moving forward, you're shaping the fight before it even begins. But taking space is only half the equation. The real skill is controlling it. Let's break down the next step. How do you actually control space, both the space you take and the space you protect? As the fight evolves, so does the space you need to control. Good spacing means maintaining your area of control, pushing forward aggressively to pressure enemy teams, and denying enemies opportunities to regain lost ground. This is accomplished by smart use of cover, understanding sightlines, and communicating with your teammates to cover angles and support each other. It can also be done by holding choke points, keeping enemies off high ground, or forcing them into predictable paths. Controlling space is about keeping your opponents boxed in, limiting their options, and making every move they make work against them and for you. Mastering this lets your team dictate the pace and flow of fights, turning even small advantages into easy wins. Let's look at it on a pro level, in an endgame situation where every inch of the zone matters. So, when it comes to controlling space, one of the most important concepts is threat analysis. Threat analysis is basically just looking around you, seeing who's around you, and who is a potential threat to you. So what can you do to mitigate that risk? You can allocate teammates. So whether it's you or your teammates, you can put teammates on a potential off angle to mitigate a risk from ever developing. So in this situation, they understand that the main way that they're going to get pushed is from Al Qadzia, who are currently on low ground in this little tunnel here. We know that this spot goes on to win the game. They understand that they control all the space right now, and all they have to do is prevent people from pushing them. So that's what they do. They spend their time to mitigate this push, and once they know zone is closed, they just control everything and look to kill them. So this is basically a concept called pulling the trigger. When you have all the space and you have a team near you or within your space, you need to kill them. So you use some form of ability to enable the fight and enter it, and then you just push and kill this team. So this team gets wiped, they climb back up, and they control all the space in zone, and they just go on to win the game for free. That's controlling space in a nutshell. It's threat analysis, mitigating risks, and pulling the trigger on teams that could potentially screw up your game. Now that we've covered how to create and control space, let's talk about what happens when spacing goes wrong. Because even if you understand spacing perfectly in theory, one mistake can throw an entire fight. The first mistake is stacking. When your team clumps together, you lose every advantage you had. You can't swing for trades, grenades will hit multiple people, and you end up blocking each other's sightlines. Spacing means trusting your teammates to hold their angles, not stacking on theirs. The second mistake is overextending. You take great space, but no one can follow you up or even see your angle. That's not creating space, that's isolation. Good spacing means pushing together, always within range to trade or cover a reset. The third mistake, giving up too much space too early. You might have the better position, but panic or bad comms cause your team to back off. You hand the enemy control for free, and once they take that ground, you're playing from the back foot for the rest of the fight. All these mistakes come from one core problem. You've lost control of your space. One short tip that'll instantly make you better at this. Start looking at your minimap every few seconds. Don't just glance, actually take something away from it. Where are your teammates positioned? Where are you positioned relative to them? Where's zone pulling and what areas of the map are still open to play? The best players don't just know their spacing. They always know where their team is, when to push and when to reset. That awareness is what separates players who just shoot from players who win. Spacing is one of those fundamentals that separates average players from great ones. It's not something you master overnight, it's something you build awareness of over time. Start paying attention to how much space you and your team control every fight. Notice when you're giving it up, notice when you're taking it, and notice when you're overcommitting for it. The more control you have over space, the more control you have over the game. And if you can master that, you can win fights before they even begin. This is Apex Fundamentals. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment what ideas you would like to see next. Make sure to have an amazing day, keep her lit.